Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be working on a very easy pattern for a mask with a filter on the inside made out of cheesecloth. Now cheesecloth, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a very gauzy fabric and it makes it very easy to breathe. So this mask has an outer layer, an inner layer, plus a double layer of cheesecloth in between. So, and actually it's very, very breathable because this is linen and the cheesecloth looks like this. It's very, very gauzy. So today we're going to use just the swimsuit elastic, which is this fine see-through elastic. It works well, and that's all I had. So that's the only reason that I'm using that. However, if you don't have swimsuit elastic, you can also use seam binding. And this part goes at the bottom and this part ties up at the top of the head. Same principle, contoured face mask. And once you tie it once at the top, you don't have to tie it anymore unless it becomes a bit loose. So it just needs to be tied once and that's it. And this is the pattern from the previous video that I had on how to draft and sew a face mask. Now this time I decided to make a downloadable pattern. So this is the downloadable pattern that I drafted. You'll forgive the bit of squiggly lines. I used my finger with the laptop mouse to make it. So anyway, it works though. It works. So you can download this one here from my website, www.cinchitpants.com, and I'll also write it down. You can download it and it will cost you $1, or you can actually draft the pattern from the previous video because it's the same pattern for free. You just draft it yourself. So either download it for $1 or draft it yourself for free. So this is what you will need to make these masks. Now, if you wanted to use twill tape, if you have twill tape, that's what you can use. And the channel is done in exactly the same way as you will for elastic. The only thing is you're going to tie the ends and you're going to make sure that the ends have been heat set, or you stitch them, or some way of finishing them so they don't unravel, because seam binding really does unravel. So you can have seam binding for that, or if you happen to have a nice ribbon, or twill tape, or elastic, whatever kind of elastic you happen to have. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the swimsuit elastic. So this is this pattern that we're making today with the, and I'm going to be using the swimsuit elastic. This is the smaller version. If you want to make a smaller one, this is the smaller version. You'll need your pattern that you've printed, unless you've drafted it. You're going to need a pipe cleaner that you can cut with scissors, not fabric scissors. You cut with something else, some other kind of scissors. So you're not going to need the whole thing, obviously, so you'll just cut however length you need. Your measuring tape, your fabric scissors, your paper scissors, your fabric, as well as your filter, if you're going to indeed put a filter in. So you're going to cut out the pattern. Now this in red is the part where the pipe cleaner goes in. And this one here, that's a little notch that's going to show you which is the top and which is the bottom. Now forgive my squiggly lines. Like I said before, it's kind of challenging to use your fingertip and the mouse from a laptop. So you can just cut not squiggly, let's put it that way. Okay, so there is your grain line. Now this can go both on the lengthwise grain or the cross grain. Either way will work. So I'm actually going to cut out that notch right there. It just makes it easier to see when it's on the fabric. Now we're ready to go. All right, so now I've taken a look at the print, and I see that there's a couple of nice birds over here that's fallen off the side there. A couple of nice birds over here that I want facing each other on the mask, just for fun. So I'm going to fold it judiciously so that they are more or less one on top of the other. And that's up to you. You don't have to do it with a, match up the print or anything like that. But I figure if I'm going to be doing the work anyway, let's make it creative. So because of this, I'm going to actually cut them out two pieces at a time. So I'm placing and this is why I don't like having seam allowances, because I can see exactly where the print is going to end and it's going to start. So I can see exactly how far I have to put the pattern for them to be in line. All right, so, and it's very easy to cut. You can cut 2 at a time. You can fold it over and cut 4 at a time if you're in a bit of a hurry. I don't happen to be. And yeah, the grain line, that's a little slightly off grain, so let's fix that a little bit. So here we go. So then you're going to mark your seam allowance. So this makes the second piece and the filter cutting very easy. So I'm just going to leave 1 centimeter all the way around. So just 1 centimeter. And choose a contrasting chalk. If that'll make life much easier for you. So there we go. And you see, it doesn't take long to mark the seam allowances. Not long at all. Okay, we're good to go. So I will have a top with a matching mask. May as well be ahead of the trends as not, right? So here we go. So that's the outside part. Now, let's see here. I'm going to just put it there. Now I'm not concerned because the inside part doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to repin that just like that. You see how easy that is? No fuss, no muss. Okay. And you just cut. Now you already have the seam allowances now. You don't have to remeasure. Now, if I were smart, I would have put the filter underneath and cut them all at once. But that's okay. That's okay. This will give me a chance to repeat. So the cheesecloth actually is very gauzy, as I said, very, very gauzy. So this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So you see 1, 2, and there's 2 more layers here, if it will come apart. Trust me, there's 2 more layers. There we go. So you've got quite a few layers. So you've got actually 4 layers. So because this fabric is so fine, it's a rayon and it's very lightweight and drapey, I want to give it some more body and I want to have a little bit more protection. So I'm going to cut 2 layers. I'm going to just place the pattern piece like this and cut 2 layers on each side. Now I've already pressed this with steam to pre-shrink it, and the fabric has already been pre-shrunk as well. Now for this one here, you don't even need to pin because it's not going to move. And cheesecloth, I find the best place to buy it, believe it or not, is in packages at Canadian Tire. It's the best price, or you can go buy it by the meter at Fabricland, and it's multiple layers. So it seems expensive, but it's not really. It's multiple layers. Okay, so now there is, you see that missing little piece over here? That reminds me that I have to cut that notch Otherwise, when I take the pattern piece off, I won't know which end is up. So I know that that's the bottom. Also, I'm going to mark my seam allowances, just like that. Well, I'm going to just trim this off a little bit. So my seam allowances are going to be marked just like this. So you see, that's how you mark the seam allowances very quickly. Here and here. So there is the notch, and there is the mark for the seam allowance, and you go through all layers at the same time. So now I'm going to remove my pattern piece and just lay them out so I'll see which side is out, which side I want. So there are my birds. There are my birds. So I want them, you see what I mean by facing each other? Isn't that cute? This is the lining part. And here are my filters. So now this so you see how gauzy that is? And there's my bottom right here. They go just like that. And these pieces, all 4 pieces, will be sewn as one. So this way, the reason that I like to put a filter on the inside like this is that it's highly washable. You don't have, you don't have to remove it, you don't have to make a pocket. It's very maker friendly, or very sewer friendly, I should say. So this is the lining pieces that go on the inside. These are the pieces that, and they will get sewn together just like this, just like that. Okay, so this is the pipe cleaner. I want to measure how long I want it. So I want it twice that length. So here it is 5 centimeters. So I want to cut a 10 centimeter length of pipe cleaner. So 10 centimeters. And not my fabric scissors. So it's right there. There, that's easy as that. Will all become very clear as it gets put together. So I have the pieces, the front pieces together along with the filter, and they will be sewn as one, just like this. And that's just the outside seam gets sewn first. Like that. Without skipping a beat, put together the lining pieces. So you put them together at the clippies, right like that. You see there's the notch, that tells me that that's the bottom. Now it doesn't matter if you start at the top or at the bottom, just so long as both notches are on the same side. Okay, so here we go. And remember, a curved seam remains curved. Don't try to straighten it out, because that's when you get puckers. And that's when you get pulling and stretching. All kinds of not so fun things. Okay, so there's that. Cut them open. And now they need to be pressed. Okay, so the iron is hot. I'm ready to press. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set the stitches, or the stitching line, by pressing it this way. I don't want to stretch it very much, because it will stretch because it's mainly bias. So now I'm going to trim off the excess seam allowance to create a little less bulk. If it's if it's a thicker fabric, you may want to stagger the seam allowances. By that I mean cut them different lengths. So that is this one. Then I'm going to, oh, look at that. Aren't they pretty? Look at how cute they look. The simple pleasures in life. So now this one here, I'm going to, because it's so fine, I think I might just put it over to the one side. No, maybe not. There we go. That will work. Over to one side or open it, the choice is yours. It all largely depends on the fabric. If the fabric is very heavy, then you'll want to open that seam. But like I said, this is rayon. It's very lightweight. It's a summer mask. Okay, so then on one side and the other. This is very, this dressmaker hand, very handy when you are pressing princess seams. Very, very handy. So now, this way. Iron's very, very hot. Okay, come on. There we go. I think that will look really cute on. All I have to do now is make myself some yellow pants. Okay, so next, now you've got both sides stitched and they're pressed, so you're good to go. Now next you're going to put them right sides together. So you know where the notch is, you marked your notch. They have to be on the same side. So right sides together, they will fall into place. And we're going to stitch this up and turn it right side out before we sew in the pipe cleaner, because the pipe cleaner has to be inserted and stitched in between the layers. Okay, so we're going to just put them together and we're going to sew the top, then the bottom, or the bottom, then the top. But I'm going to sew, whichever side you go, you're going to sew on this side with the a filter facing up. Just line up your seams. You can pin if you like. I have a tendency to not pin because I find they just take way too much time. So, back tack. Just everything just lines right up perfectly. Other side. So you line up your clippies, line up your, where are you? Your clippies, you see right there, they line up. Your seam allowance lines up. Just like that. So clean up the ends over here. all the stray threads. And I'm going to trim the seam allowances. So remember, there's no big deal if the pipe cleaner mark is not marked. All you have to do is measure 5 centimeters on either side of that center seam and it'll be positioned correctly. There we go. And here's the pipe cleaner. Okay, now I'm going to just turn this right side out. It's very easy to turn. Once you get past the seam, it'll be even easier. There we go. Turn it right side out. And I'm going to press it so that I have a nice flat seam to put the pipe cleaner in. So you see, it's just like that goes on the inside. So no big deal. All right, so now we're going to press again. Okay, iron's still hot. So I'm just going to start on one outside edge, whichever, the top or the bottom, doesn't much matter. Just start at one end. But you want to press with the right side up, the outside up, I should say. That way you make sure that you get a nice crisp line there. There, you see how nice it is turning out. Okay, so now it's time to insert the twist tie in here. Now, remember how I said it was 5 centimeters on either side of that line? You can take a little bit of chalk and measure that distance so that you know where the twist tie or the pipe cleaner has to go. So 5, and choose your chalk wisely, or you can even just put a pin on one side just through the top layer. So what I like to do, and I know which side is up because my birdies are right side up. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to insert my fingers in through there and out the other side just to be sure that I am not inside the filter. And I'm just going to grab the pipe cleaner, pull it through. And then I'm going to get one end and put it to the mark right there. The other end goes into the other mark. And that way you can see that it's even on both sides. Okay. So one mark, the other mark, pipe cleaner in between. And now we stitch. We're going to stitch down here and across and up the other side. And I stitch on the top side just to be sure that it comes out nice and straight. So we're going to stitch down one side and back tack. Pivot. and up here and back. There you have it. It's right in there. Okay. Now you'll notice that I didn't give you a measurement for the elastic. I can't really do that because elastics stretch differently and they're different sized heads. So you're going to have to do that on your own just to measure and see how big and allow for the stretch. This doesn't have a lot of stretch. So I cut a 60 centimeter piece, and I'm actually going to put it together before I insert it into the mask. It's way easier to put it together this way. So I'm going to put it together, overlapping the pieces. It's unfortunately it's clear elastic, so you really can't see it that well. But this is way easier than trying to work with the mask already inserted. So I'm going to just and this way and stitch it with like the regular elastic. It's a little easier to see. With this one here, it's a little more challenging, and yeah, I've had a lot of experience with see-through thread, see-through beads, sewing see-through beads with invisible thread on tulle. That was fun. Very interesting. But a bride wanted it, and so that's what she got. Okay, so now I'm ready to insert the elastic into the mask. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little channel in here. Now the trick is you have to insert the elastic in before you sew it, otherwise then you're snookered. You'll have to take it apart and do it again. So I'm putting the sewn side underneath, so that comes under the hair and you won't see it. It just becomes invisible like that. All right, so now if you were doing seam binding, the same thing. You would cut the length and you would put the seam binding into the channel before you stitch it, trying not to sew it, to stitch it down. Okay, so now we're going to sew it. As I said, you make a little channel, put the elastic in there, and you're going to stitch it trying not to stitch the elastic down. You don't want that. You want it to be moving freely within the channel. So I'm going to take and put the elastic on this side. It's right there. So the elastic is going to be on this side here. And I'm going to hang on to it because I don't want to get it caught in there, and it does happen. Let's just check and see. Yes, perfect. It moves. Okay. And now for the other side. So once again, now I'm using contrasting thread, so it'll be easier for everyone to see what I'm doing. Okay, so here we go on the other side. Once again, the little channel, fold it under, like this, and we'll move the elastic out of the way. before I back tack, I'm just going to check and make sure that I didn't catch it. Yep, good. You do that a few hundred times, you soon learn to check before you back tack. Oops. So there you go. It moves. So there you have your mask. So there you have your mask with a matching top. So you're going to put it on by putting the bottom behind your head, and you see the mask just slides. And then you're going to just slide it, put it over top of your head, and adjust it, and look. And fix that pipe cleaner inside. Ta-da! You're completely coordinated. Ready to go. Now this actually feels really, you can adjust it to have less pull up above, more pull down below. You are the boss. And this actually breathes very, very well because it's very thin layers of fabric that are put together to create a nice filter. Also, you wear glasses. They don't fog up. Not like if you were wearing them, see, like this. They fog up. Put them over top there. And if you're wearing hearing aids, I don't have mine on at the moment, but if you're wearing hearing aids, they're not going to bother you at all. So whether you choose to do it like this, or you choose to use seam binding, it's the same principle. Put it on at the back and tie it at the top of the head. Just like that.